Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer.
I'm Steve Wilkes.
We are here today with a bit of a history lesson and a challenge for you.
That's right. We want you to brew what we're going to brew.
That's right. That's our challenge. We are going to come back next month and taste what we're going to brew today. And our challenge to you is for you to brew this same beer and then taste it. And we're cloning a commercial label brand so that you can taste it against that.
Yep.
And you can compare against our tasting. And you can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/basicbrewing, or our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/basicbrewing.
Right.
And look for this episode and you can do your comments there. So that's our challenge.
Yeah.
Now for the history lesson.
Jack McAuliffe.
Jack McAuliffe is the brewer of this beer.
This is a new Albion Ale.
This is a historic beer. It's available nationwide. It's being produced by the Boston Beer Company, the Sam Adams people. So look for it next to the Sam Adams products. But here's the story of that beer. Why don't you open one up?
I think I will.
Jack McAuliffe was in the United States Navy, stationed in the UK back in the 70s, and he fell in love with the English-style beers, the pale ales, the stouts, the porters. And then he came home after being in the Navy. He was an engineer. Came home to what in the 70s?
Yellow fizzy stuff.
Yellow fizzy stuff, as we politely would call it.
Yeah.
And so he started home brewing, and he started brewing the styles that he liked back in the UK, and then decided to make the leap into going pro. And this is what makes him an important person, because he is the first person to go from being a home brewer to being a craft brewer in the United States. He built this new Albion brewery from scratch. He could only brew 55 gallons at a time, which some of you home brewers may have a system bigger than that.
Yeah.
But the brewery only lasted 6 years. But Maureen Ogle, a historian, called it the most important failed brewery in American craft beer history, because people like Ken Grossman from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company came and toured the facility. And at that time, Ken was a homebrew shop owner and said, I could do this. And so he started Sierra Nevada Brewing, which of course became very successful. Like I say, this brewery, New Albion Brewing Company, only lasted for half a dozen years, but it started the ball rolling on the American craft beer movement. So for a limited time, this one-time release, Jim Cook from Sam Adams has resurrected this brand and is working with Jack McAuliffe to bring back this the first American pale ale.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers
To Jim and Jack.
That's a nice beer. That is such a drinkable beer.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the hops, in comparison to American IPAs of today, are fairly understated.
Very. It's just kind of a floral, like a hint of a hop.
But if you were drinking yellow fizzy stuff back in the 70s and you tried this beer,
This would be a revelation.
it is revolutionary.
Yeah.
And this is the beer that American pale ales, that style, was built on.
Yeah.
Now, the lucky thing for us is that Jack McAuliffe, coincidentally, lives about 4 minutes that way. He lives in Northwest Arkansas now. So we've actually met Jack and have come to know him a bit. And a while back, Andy Sparks and I had the privilege and the honor to brew this beer on my driveway, a 5-gallon batch. And we got to brew that with Jack McAuliffe, which was an amazing experience.
I made it for some of that day.
Yes, you were
Yeah.
here. Yeah, you were here at the end of it. That's
Yeah.
right. Didn't get pictures of you, unfortunately, but
That's
but you're here now,
That's what counts.
and you're color coordinated with the box there.
Well,
But anyway, it is a wonderfully simple beer. And I asked Jack. I met him at the bar, Tanglewood Branch Brewing Company, pub in Fayetteville, to get his secret of brewing this beer. And I said, okay, Jack, this New Albion Pale Ale, what's the grain bill? He said, 2 row.
2 row.
Okay, what else? That's it. Two-row. No specialty malts at all.
Nothing.
And I said, okay, what about hops? Cascade.
Cascade.
That's it. This is a single malt and single hop beer, or a smash beer. Back then, Cascade was the only hop that he could get. It was a brand new hop. And because he was a teeny tiny brewery and didn't buy his hops by the train car load,
Right.
he could just get Cascade, which was this, like I say, this kind of experimental brand new hop.
I was going to say, nobody was probably using it. I mean, like, the Anheuser-Busch, those folks weren't using it.
The big boys didn't know what to do with it.
Right. And what about specialty grains? Were they even on the horizon? Had anybody even thought about them?
Oh yeah,
very
I
much?
mean, he in his stout and in his porter he used specialty grains.
That's what I wondered.
But for this, just a pale ale,
Okay.
he used pale malt.
What are we talking here? 78, 80?
For the brewery ran from 1976 to 1982.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were alive back then.
Well,
So the specs for this beer, he said, original gravity of 1055 and 28 to 32 IBUs, or bitterness units. And there are 3 hop additions, one at 60 minutes, one at 30 minutes, and one at 15 minutes, and each one of those is equal. So if you know those specs and you're an advanced home brewer, you can kind of work that backwards. And we, together with Jack, worked out the ingredients for a 5-gallon batch, which, if you get the episode, or the issue, not the episode, the issue of Brew Your Own magazine, January, February of 2013, here is an article on Jack, and it's got Jim Cook with Sam Adams, and there's the recipe right there. Now, we're not going to do a 5-gallon batch, are we, Steve?
what are we going to do?
We're going to do a 1-gallon batch. Or actually, less than 1 gallon, because it's got to fit in this 1-gallon jug, which is going to be our fermenter. It's after one sip of beer.
You're killing me.
So
So we're going to do a 1-gallon batch.
we are going to do a 1-gallon batch of beer. And remember, your challenge is to do this beer
Yeah.
and then tune in next month, at the end of the month, and taste it with us.
We'll all have a virtual tasting party.
That's right.
Yeah.
So why don't we get started? So the first thing that we did was to heat 3 quarts of water to 161 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 2.8 liters to 74 C.
So euro.
And then we added 2 pounds or 907 grams of two-row to that and stirred it in nicely. And that brought us to our mash rest temperature of 148 degrees Fahrenheit or 64 C. Once we got that all stirred in, we covered it up and we held that for 1 hour to convert our starches into sugars. In the meantime, we heated 4 quarts of water to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 3.8 liters to 77 C. And then we scooped out our grain into the colander and we sparged with that water which we had heated while the mash was resting. We collected our wort that way and we got it up to a boil, and then we started with our 3 hop additions. And each one of these was 4 grams of Cascade hop pellets.
Very fresh Cascade hop pellets, too, I might add.
Yeah, the first one was at 60 minutes, the second one was at 30 minutes, and here we are. Here we are at 15 minutes before the end of our hour-long boil, and we're going to add the last of the 3 hop additions of 4 grams of Cascade. And you know what? Since there are 3 hop additions, this beer is...
Triple hopped.
It truly is triple hop.
Shall I do it?
Please. Look. Oh, there it goes. And you know... Oh my gosh. That is some tasty smelling stuff.
That's a little slice of heaven.
And when we added the first addition, you said... You remember what you said?
No.
You said it smells like New Albion.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Because you could smell the two-row grain, and you could smell the Cascade hops. Oh my gosh, such a wonderful thing. So simple, but you don't need to be complex to be a wonderful beer.
That's right.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to let this boil for the last 15 minutes, and then we're going to take it to the sink and we're going to chill it down in an ice bath to pitching temperature, which is probably in the 60s Fahrenheit. And then we're going to pour that into our 1 gallon fermenter, 1 gallon jug, and then we'll pitch 2 grams of Saf Ale US-05 and let that hydrate, shake it up, put on our airlock, and let it go. And of course, all your fermenter and everything's got to be sanitized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Jack, in his original New Albion Ale, used a proprietary English yeast that we can't get. Now, in the recipe that we brewed with Jack, we used White Lab's London Ale yeast, and that turned out really well. I'm just curious to see what the American ale yeast will do for the same recipe.
Well, I was really struck by we had went for a 148 mash temperature, and I was expecting a really thin beer. This is not a thin beer.
Right.
So, boy, that was kind of an eye-opener to me.
Yeah. Now, the theory is that the lower that you hit that saccharification temperature, the more fermentable sugars that you're going to create, and the more the thinner your beer is.
Right.
If you mash higher, you'll get more unfermentable sugars, and you get a better mouthfeel. And I asked Jack about this. I said, "Boy, that's you don't have any crystal malt to add to the mouthfeel of this beer. Isn't it going to be thin?" And he said, "No, you'll be all right."
Yeah.
It's great. And the homebrew version was also great as well. So
Yeah.
I'm sure this will be good too.
So your job is to brew this beer.
That's right. And get a 6-pack of New Albion Ale if you can find it.
Do a side-by-side.
To do a side-by-side and get back to the roots of American craft brewing.
Yeah.
And when you do, salute Jack McAuliffe and New Albion Brewery. And we'll see you next month, and we'll try this out.
Happy brewing.
Cheers.
Come and visit us on the web at basicbrewing.com. You can find archive lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Introduction to Wine Kits, and our Basic Brewing Brewer's Logbook, where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to James at basicbrewing.com, Steve at basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.
Woo! What do you think?
I think it's great.